Christmas at Sea by Robert Louis Stevenson. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. The sheets were frozen hard, and they cut the naked hand. The decks were like a slide, where the seaman scarce could stand. The wind was a nor'wester, blowing squally off the sea, and cliffs and spouting breakers were the only things alee. They heard the surf a-roaring before the break of day, but 'twas only with a peep of light we saw how ill we lay. We tumbled every hand on deck instanter with a shout, and we gave her the main topsail and stood by to go about. All day we tacked and tacked between the south head and the north. All day we hauled the frozen sheets and got no further forth. All day as cold as charity, in bitter pain and dread, for very life and nature we tacked from head to head. We gave the south a wider berth, for there the tide race roared. But every tack we made we brought the north head close aboard. So we saw the cliffs and houses and the breakers running high, and the coast guard in his garden with his glass against his eye. The frost was on the village roofs as white as ocean foam. The good red fires were burning bright in every longshore home. The windows sparkled clear, and the chimneys volleyed out, and I vow we sniffed the victuals as the vessel went about. The bells upon the church were rung with a mighty jovial cheer, for it's just now I should tell you how, of all the days in the year, this day of our adversity was blessed Christmas morn, and the house above the coast guards was the house where I was born. Oh, well I saw the pleasant room, the pleasant faces there, my mother's silver spectacles, my father's silver hair, and well I saw the firelight, like a flight of homely elves, go dancing round the china plates that stand upon the shelves. And well I knew the talk they had, the talk that was of me, of the shadow on the household, and the sun that went to sea. And oh, the wicked fool I seemed in every kind of way, to be here and hauling frozen ropes on blessed Christmas Day. They lit the high sea light, and the dark began to fall. "All hands to loose topgallant sails," I heard the captain call. "By the Lord, she'll never stand it," our first mate Jackson cried. "It's the one way or the other, Mr. Jackson," he replied. She staggered to her bearings, but the sails were new and good, and the ship smelt up to windward just as though she understood. As the winter's day was ending, in the entry of the night, we cleared the weary headland and passed below the light. And they heaved a mighty breath, every soul on board but me, as they saw her nose again pointing handsome out to sea. But all that I could think of in the darkness and the cold was just that I was leaving home, and my folks were growing old. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Cities and Thrones and Powers by Rudyard Kipling. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgate Novelist. Cities and thrones and powers stand in time's eye, almost as long as flowers, which daily die. But, as new buds put forth to glad new men, out of this spent and unconsidered earth the cities rise again. This season's daffodil, she never hears what change, what chance, what chill cut down last year's, but with bold countenance and knowledge small, esteems her 7 days' continuance to be perpetual. So time, that is o'erkind to all that be, ordains us e'en as blind, as bold as she, that in our very death and burial sure, shadow to shadow, well persuaded, saith, "See how our works endure." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dark Ages by O.S. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Dark Ages, being reflections on the pre-press period. In the Times of December 2nd, Lord Northcliffe traces the history of the English press from the appearance of the first newspaper uttered in English, A Courant out of Germany, imprinted at Amsterdam, December 2nd, 1620, and finds some difficulty in understanding how civilization got on as well as it did through all those preceding centuries. To-day, December 2nd, we keep, with cheers, the tercentenary of the press. Probing the darkness of the previous years, I try, but try in vain, to guess how anybody lived before the birth of this the very greatest thing on earth. You'd say it must have been a savage life. Men were content to eat and drink, and spent the intervals in carnal strife, with none to teach them how to think. They had no vision, and their minds were dense, largely for lack of true intelligence. When a volcano burst or floods occurred, no correspondent flashed the news. It came by rumour or a little bird, devoid of editorial views. No leader let them know to what extent the blame should lie upon the government. And yet, when no one knew in those dumb days exactly what was going on, without reporters they contrived to raise the Pyramids and Parthenon. Confucius preached the truth, and so did Paul, though neither of them got in print at all. It sounds incredible that, when in Greece the poets sang to lyre or pipe, when Homer, say, threw off his little piece, nobody put the thing in type. Even in days less barbarously rude, Virgil, it seems, was never interviewed. And how did Dante manage to indite his admirable tale of hell? Or Buonarroti sculp his sombre night, without the kodak's magic spell, no press photographer, a dream of tact, to snap the artist in the very act? Poor primitives, who groped amid the gloom, and perished ere the dawn of day, ere yet publicity, with piercing boom, had shown the world a better way, before the age, so good for him that climbs, now culminating in the Northcliffe Times. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. Read for LibriVox.org by Ian King. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled bine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. The land's sharp features seemed to me the century's corpse outleant, its crypt the cloudy canopy, the wind its death lament. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a full-hearted evensong of joy illimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, with blast-beruffled plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. So little cause for carollings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around, that I could think there trembled through his happy good-night air some blessed hope whereof he knew, and I was unaware. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dying Swan by Anonymous. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Dying Swan. Latest version, a long way after the Laureate. Thames swan-upping. The Queen's Swanherd and the officials of the Dyers and Vintners Companies arrived at Windsor yesterday on their annual swan-upping visit, for the purpose of marking or nicking the swans and cygnets belonging to Her Majesty, and the companies interested in the preservation of the birds that haunt the stream between London and Henley. It is said that the Thames swans are steadily decreasing, owing to the traffic on the upper reaches of the river, and other causes detrimental to their breeding. The Times. 1. July was wet, a thing not rare. With sodden ground and chilly air, the sky presented everywhere a low-pitched roof of doleful grey. With a rain-flushed flood the river ran, adown it floated a dying swan, and loudly did lament. It was the middle of the day. The swan-herd and his men went on, nicking the cygnets as they went. 2. The swan-herd showed a blue-peaked nose, and white against the cold white sky shone many a face of those who over the upper reaches swept, on swans and cygnets keeping an eye. Dyers and vintners, portly, mellow, chasing the birds of the jetty-bill through the reed clusters green and still, and through the osier mazes crept many a cap-feathered crook-armed fellow. 3. The lone swan's requiem smote the soul with the reverse of joy. It spake of sorrow, of outfalls queer, dyeing the floods once full and clear, of launches wildly galumphing by, washing the banks into hollow and hole, sometimes afar and sometimes anear, all marring Ares' exuberant voice with music strange and manifold, howling out choruses loud and bold, as when bank holiday'ites rejoice with concertinas and a many-holed shrill whistle of tin, till the riot is rolled through shy backwaters where swan-nests are, and greasy scraps of the echo or star, waves from the cat's oleaginous feeds, emitting odours reekingly rank, drift under the clumps of the water-weeds, and broken bottles invade the reeds, and the wavy smell of the many-barged tug breaks and befouls the green Thames bank, and the steady decrease of the snow-plumed throng that sail the upper Thames reaches among was prophesied in that plaintive song. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Eddie's Service by Rudyard Kipling. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgate Novelist. A.D. 687. Eddie, priest of St. Wilfrid, in his chapel at Manhood End, ordered a midnight service for such as cared to attend. But the Saxons were keeping Christmas, and the night was stormy as well. Nobody came to service, though Eddie rang the bell. "Wicked weather for walking," said Eddie of Manhood End, "but I must go on with this service for such as care to attend." The altar lamps were lighted, an old marsh donkey came, bold as a guest invited, and stared at the guttering flame. The storm beat on at the windows, the water splashed on the floor, and a wet, yoke-weary bullock pushed in through the open door. "How do I know what is greatest? How do I know what is least? That is my father's business," said Eddie, Wilfrid's priest. "But 3 are gathered together. Listen to me and attend. I bring good news, my brethren," said Eddie of Manhood End. And he told the ox of a manger, and a stall in Bethlehem, and he spoke to the ass of a rider that rode to Jerusalem. They steamed and dripped in the chancel, they listened and never stirred, while, just as though they were bishops, Eddie preached them the word, till the gale blew off on the marshes, and the windows showed the day, and the ox and the ass together wheeled and clattered away. And when the Saxons mocked him, said Eddie of Manhood End, I dare not shut his chapel on such as care to attend. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The End of the Play by William Makepeace Thackeray. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. The play is done. The curtain drops, slow falling to the prompter's bell. A moment yet the actor stops and looks around to say farewell. It is an irksome word and task, and when he's laughed and said his say, he shows, as he removes the mask, a face that's anything but gay. One word ere yet the evening ends. Let's close it with a parting rhyme, and pledge a hand to all young friends as fits the merry Christmas time. On life's wide scene you, too, have parts, that fate here long shall bid you play. Good night, with honest gentle hearts, a kindly greeting go alway. Good night! I'd say the griefs, the joys, just hinted in this mimic page, the triumphs and defeats of boys, are but repeated in our age. I'd say, your woes were not less keen, your hopes more vain than those of men. Your pangs are pleasures of 15, at 45 played o'er again. I'd say, we suffer and we strive, not less or more as men than boys, with grizzled beards at 45, as erst at 12 in corduroys. And if in time of sacred youth we learned at home to love and pray, pray heaven that early love and truth may never wholly pass away. And in the world, as in the school, I'd say how fate may change and shift. The prize be sometimes with the fool, the race not always to the swift. The strong may yield, the good may fall, the great man be a vulgar clown, the knave be lifted over all, the kind cast pitilessly down. Who knows the inscrutable design? Blessed be he who took and gave. Why should your mother, Charles, not mine, be weeping at her darling's grave? We bow to heaven that willed it so, that darkly rules the fate of all, that sends the respite or the blow, that's free to give or to recall. This crowns his feast with wine and wit, who brought him to that mirth and state? His betters, see, below him sit, or hunger hopeless at the gate. Who bade the mud from Dives' wheel to spurn the rags of Lazarus? Come, brother, in that dust we'll kneel, confessing heaven that ruled it thus. So each shall mourn in life's advance, dear hopes, dear friends, untimely killed, shall grieve for many a forfeit chance, and longing passion unfulfilled. Amen. Whatever fate be sent, pray God the heart may kindly glow, although the head with cares be bent, and whitened with the winter snow. Come wealth or want, come good or ill, let young and old accept their part, and bow before the awful will, and bear it with an honest heart, who misses or who wins the prize. Go, lose or conquer as you can, but if you fail, or if you rise, be each, pray God, a gentleman. A gentleman or old or young, bear kindly with my humble lays. The sacred chorus first was sung upon the first of Christmas days. The shepherds heard it overhead, the joyful angels raised it then. Glory to heaven on high, it said, and peace on earth to gentle men. My song save this is little worth. I lay the weary pen aside, and wish you health and love and mirth, as fits the solemn Christmas tide, as fits the holy Christmas birth. Be this, good friends, our carol still, be peace on earth, be peace on earth, to men of gentle will. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Farewell, Ungrateful Traitor by John Dryden. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tomlinson. Farewell, ungrateful traitor. Farewell, my perjured swain. Let never injured woman believe a man again. The pleasure of possessing surpasses all expressing, but 'tis too short a blessing, and love too long a pain. 'Tis easy to deceive us in pity of your pain, but when we love, you leave us to reel against you in vain. Before we have descried it, there is no joy beside it. But she that once has tried it will never love again. The passion you pretended was only to obtain, but once the charm is ended, the charmer you disdain. Your love by hours we measure, till we have lost our treasure. But dying is a pleasure, when living is a pain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Gather the Harvest by Thomas O'Hagan. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Gather the harvest, though reaped in death, under the pale, pale moon. For the lilies that joyed in the breath of morn shall know not the ardor of noon. So the souls that grow strong in patriot love shall be garnered on death's dark field, ere the noontide rays have touched the veil and burnished with gold life's shield. Gather the harvest, though reaped in death, where the sword has struck for right, and cleft a way for freedom's path through the dark and tremulous night. For the golden grain on the altar flames and lights each pilgrim throng, as they meet in joy round that altar bright, where justice shall right each wrong. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
If I Can Stop One Heart from Breaking by Emily Dickinson. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I'm Nobody, Who Are You? By Emily Dickinson. Read for LibriVox.org by Daphne Ma. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'd advertise. You know, how dreary to be somebody, how public, like a frog, to tell your name the livelong tune to an admiring bog. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
In the Droving Days by A. B. Banjo Patterson. Read for LibriVox.org by Son of the Exiles. In the Droving Days. Only £1, said the auctioneer. Only £1, and I'm standing here, selling this animal, gain or loss. Only £1 for the drover's horse. One of the sort that was never afraid, one of the boys of the old brigade. Thoroughly honest and game, I'll swear, only a little the worse for wear. Plenty as bad to be seen in town. Give me a bid and I'll knock him down. Sold as he stands and without recourse. Give me a bid for the drover's horse. Loitering there in an aimless way, somehow I noticed the poor old grey. Wearied and battered and screwed, of course. Yet when I noticed the old grey horse, the rough bush saddle and single rein of the bridle laid on his tangled mane, straightway the crowd and the auctioneer seemed on a sudden to disappear, melted away in a kind of haze, for my heart went back to the droving days. Back to the road, and I crossed again over the miles of the saltbush plain, the shining plain that is said to be the dried up bed of an inland sea. where the air so dry and so clear and bright refracts the sun with a wondrous light, and out in the dim horizon makes the deep blue gleam of the phantom lakes. At dawn of day we would feel the breeze that stirred the boughs of the sleeping trees, and brought a breath of the fragrance rare that comes and goes in that scented air. For the trees and grass and the shrubs contain a dry sweet scent on the saltbush plain. For those that love it and understand, the saltbush plain is a wonderland, a wondrous country where nature's ways were revealed to me in the droving days. We saw the fleet wild horses pass, and the kangaroos through the Mitchell grass. The emu ran with her frightened brood, all unmolested and unpursued. But there rose a shout and a wild hubbub when the dingo raced for his native scrub, and he paid right dear for his stolen meals, with the drover's dogs at his wretched heels. For he ran him down at a rattling pace, while the pack-horse joined in the stirring chase. And a wild halloo at the kill we'd raise, we were light of heart in the droving days. 'Twas a drover's horse, and my hand again made a move to close on a fancied rein, for I felt the swing and the easy stride of that grand old horse that I used to ride. In drought or plenty, in good or ill, that same old steed was my comrade still. The old grey horse with his honest ways was a mate to me in the droving days. When we kept our watch in the cold and damp, if the cattle broke from the sleeping camp, over the flats and across the plain, with my head bent down on his waving mane, through the boughs above and the stumps below, on the darkest night I could let him go. At a racing speed he would choose his course, and my life was safe with that old grey horse. But man and horse had a favourite job when an outlaw broke from a station mob. With a right good will was the stockwhip plied, as the old horse raced at the straggler's side. And the greenhide whip such a wheel would raise, we could use the whip in the droving days. Only a pound, and was this the end? Only a pound for the drover's friend, the drover's friend that had seen his day and now was worthless and cast away, with a broken knee and a broken heart, to be flogged and starved in a hawker's cart. Well, I made a bid for a sense of shame, and the memories dear of the good old game. Thank you, guinea, and cheap at that, against you there in the curly hat. Only a guinea and one more chance, down he goes if there's no advance. Third and the last time, 1, 2, 3, and the old grey horse was knocked down to me. And now he's wandering fat and sleek on the lucerne flats by the homestead creek. I dare not ride him for fear he'd fall, but he does a journey to beat them all. For though he scarcely a trot can raise, he can take me back to the droving days. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
An Invitation by Thomas O'Hagan. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Come with me into the mystery of nature's shadow and sound, where the heart of the past and the dreams of today make holy each rood of ground, where the spoils of the years that have fled are heaped on altars of pain, and the tears that were shed on each pillow of grief are turned to glory and gain. Come with me into the mystery of nature's infinite plan, with its flower and fruit in heaven above, and its root in the heart of man, where the latent powers of things that are take form and shape divine, and the water of life at the wedding feast is turned to red, red wine. Come with me into the mystery of infinite love and care, where the planets wheel through the grooves of time, and the swallows fade in the air, where the thoughts that we utter seek home and rest in the bosom of God, with the infinite blest. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Jenny Kissed Me by Leigh Hunt. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Jenny kissed me when we met, jumping from the chair she sat in. Time, you thief who love to get sweets into your list, put that in. Say I'm weary, say I'm sad, say that health and wealth have missed me, say I'm growing old, but add, Jenny kissed me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Jolly Dead March by Henry Lawson. Read for LibriVox.org by Son of the Exiles. The Jolly Dead March. If I ever be worthy or famous, which I'm sadly beginning to doubt, when the angel whose place 'tis to name us shall say to my spirit, "Pass out," I want for no snivelling 'bout me. My work was the work of the land, but I hope that my country will shout me the price of a decent brass band. Oh, let it strike up Annie Laurie, and let it burst out with Lang Syne, twin voices of sadness and glory that have ever been likings of mine, and give the French war hymn deep-throated, with the Star-Spangled Banner between. But let the last mile be devoted to Britannia and wearing the green. Thump, thump of the drums and Tararit, thump, thump of the drum 'twill be grand, though only in dream or in spirit, to ride or flit after that band, while myself and my mourners go straying and strolling and drifting along, with the cornets in front of us playing the tune of an old battle song. I ask for no turnout to bear me, I ask not for railings or slabs, but spare me, my country, oh spare me, the hearse and the long string of cabs. And if in the end more's the pity, there's fame more than money to spare. A vanman I know in the city will cart me this side up with care, and my spirit will join the procession, will pause, so to speak, on the brink, nor feel the least shade of depression when the mourners drop out for a drink. It may be a hot day in December, or a cold day in June it may be, and a drink will but help them remember the good points the world missed in me. Unhook the West Port for an orphan, an old digger chorus revive. If you don't hear a whoop from the coffin, I am not being buried alive. But I'll go with a spirit less bitter than mine on the earth's ever been, and perhaps to save trouble St. Peter will pass me 2 comrades between. Thump, thump of the drum we inherit, war drums of my dreams, oh 'tis grand. Be this the reward of all merit, to ride or march after a band, and we the world battlers go straying and loving and laughing along, with hope in the lead of us playing the tune of a life battle song. Then let them strike up Annie Laurie, and let them burst out with Lang Syne, twin voices of sadness and glory that have ever been likings of mine. Let them swirl the French war hymn deep-throated, and I'll not bucket God Save the Queen, but let the last mile be devoted to Britannia and wearing the green. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Jumblies by Edward Lear. Read for LibriVox.org by Scotty Smith. They went to sea in a sieve, they did. In a sieve they went to sea, in spite of all their friends could say. On a winter's morn, on a stormy day, in a sieve they went to sea. And when the sieve turned round and round, and everyone cried, "You'll all be drowned!" they called aloud, "Our sieve ain't big, but we don't care a button, we don't care a fig. In a sieve we'll go to sea." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. They sailed away in a sieve, they did. In a sieve they sailed so fast, with only a beautiful pea-green veil tied with a ribbon by way of a sail to a small tobacco-pipe mast. And everyone said who saw them go, "Oh, won't they be soon upset, you know? For the sky is dark and the voyage is long, and happen what may, it's extremely wrong in a sieve to sail so fast." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. The water, it soon came in, it did. The water, it soon came in. So to keep them dry, they wrapped their feet in a pinky paper all folded neat, and they fastened it down with a pin. And they passed the night in a crockery jar, and each of them said, "How wise we are! Though the sky be dark and the voyage be long, we never can think we were rash or wrong, while round in our sieve we spin." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green, their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. And all night long they sailed away, and when the sun went down, they whistled and warbled a moony song to the echoing sound of a coppery gong in the shade of the mountains brown. "Oh, Timbolo, happy we are, when we live in a sieve and a crockery jar, and all night long in a moonlight pale we sail away in a pea-green sail in the shade of the mountains brown." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. They sailed to the western sea, they did, to a land all covered with trees. And they bought an owl and a useful cart and a pound of rice and a cranberry tart and a hive of silvery bees. And they bought a pig and some green jackdaws and a lovely monkey with lollipop paws and 40 bottles of Ringbo Rees and no end of Stilton cheese. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. And in 20 years they all came back, in 20 years or more, and everyone said, "How tall they've grown, for they've been to the lakes and the Torrible Zone and the hills of the Chankly Bore." And they drank their health and gave them a feast of dumplings made of beautiful yeast, and everyone said, "If we only live, we too will go to sea in a sieve, to the hills of the Chankly Bore." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Legend of Yuval by George Eliot. Read for LibriVox.org by Josh Middledorf. The Legend of Yuval by George Eliot. Read for LibriVox.org by Josh Middledorf. When Cain was driven from Jehovah's land, he wandered eastward seeking some far strand ruled by kind gods who asked no offerings save pure field fruits as aromatic things to feed the subtler senses of frames divine that lived on fragrance for their food and wine. Wild, joyous gods who winked at faults and folly and could be pitiful and melancholy. He never had a doubt that such gods were. He looked within and saw them mirrored there. Some think he came at last to Tartary, some think to Ind, but howsoever it be, his staff he planted where sweet waters ran, and in that home of Cain the arts began. Man's life was spacious in that early world. It paused like some slow ship with sail unfurled, waiting in seas by scarce a wavelet curled, beheld the slow star paces of the skies, and grew from strength to strength through centuries, saw infant trees fill out their giant limbs, and heard 1,000 times the sweet birds' marriage hymns. In Cain's young city none had heard of death. save him the founder. And it was his faith that here, away from harsh Jehovah's law, man was immortal, since no halt or flaw in Cain's own frame betrayed 600 years. But dark as pines, that autumn never sears his locks, thronged backwards as he ran. His frame rose like the orbed sun, each morn the same, lake-mirrored to his gaze, and that red brand, the scorching impress of Jehovah's hand, was still clear-edged to his unwearied eye, its secret firm in time-fraught memory. He said, "My happy offspring shall not know that the red life from out a man may flow, when smitten by his brother. True, his race bore each one stamped upon his newborn face a copy of the brand no whit less clear, but every mother held that little copy dear. Thus generations in glad idleness throve, nor hunted prey, nor with each other strove, for clearest springs were plenteous in the land, and gourds for cups the ripe fruits sought the hand, bending the laden boughs with fragrant gold, and for their roofs and garments wealth untold lay everywhere in the grasses and broad leaves. They labored gently, as a maid who weaves her hair in mimic mats, and pauses oft and strokes across her hand the tresses soft, then peeps to watch the poised butterfly, or little burdened ants that homeward hie. Time was but leisure to their lingering thought, there was no need for haste to finish aught, but sweet beginnings were repeated still, like infant babblings that no task fulfill, for love, that loved not change, constrained the simple will. Till, hurling stones in mere athletic joy, strong Lamech struck and killed his fairest boy, and tried to wake him with the tenderest cries, and fetched and held before the glazed eyes the things they best had loved to look upon. But never glance or smile or sigh he won. The generations stood around those twain, helplessly gazing, till their father, Cain, parted the press and said, "He will not wake. This is the endless sleep, and we must make a bed deep down for him beneath the sod. For know, my sons, there is a mighty God, angry with all man's race, but most with me. I fled from out his land in vain. 'Tis he who came and slew the lad, for he has found this home of ours, and we shall all be bound by the harsh bands of his most cruel will, which any moment may some dear one kill. Nay, though we live for countless moons, at last we and all ours die like summers past. This is Jehovah's will, and he is strong. I thought the way I travelled was too long for him to follow me. My thought was vain. He walks unseen, but leaves a track of pain. Pale death his footprint is, and he will come again." And a new spirit from that hour came o'er the race of Cain. Soft idleness was no more, but even the sunshine had a heart of care. Smiling with hidden dread, a mother fair who, folding to her breast a dying child, beams with feigned joy that but makes sadness mild. Death was now lord of life, and at his word Time, vague as air before, new terrors stirred. With measured wing now audibly arose, throbbing through all things to some unknown close. Now glad content by clutching haste was torn, and work grew eager, and device was born. It seemed the light was never loved before. Now each man said, "'Twill go and come no more." No budding branch, no pebble from the brook, no form, no shadow, but new dearness took from the one thought that life must have an end, and the last parting now began to send diffusive dread through love and wedded bliss, thrilling them into finer tenderness. Then memory disclosed her face divine, that like the calm nocturnal lights doth shine Within the soul, and shows the sacred graves, and shows the presence that no sunlight craves, no space, no warmth, but moves among them all, gone and yet here, coming at each call, with ready voice and eyes that understand, and lips that ask a kiss, and dear responsive hand. Thus to Cain's race death was tear-watered seed of various life and action-shaping need. But chief the sons of Lamech felt the stings of new ambition, and the force that springs in passion, beating on the shores of fate. They said, "There comes a night when all too late the mind shall long to prompt the achieving hand, the eager thought behind the closed portals stand, and the last wishes to the mute lips press, buried ere death in silent helplessness. Then, while the soul its way with sound can cleave, and while the arm is strong to strike and heave, let soul and arm give shape that will abide and rule above our graves, and power divide with that great God of day, whose rays must bend as we shall make the moving shadows tend. Come, let us fashion acts that are to be when we shall lie in darkness silently, as our young brother doth, whom yet we see fallen and slain, but reigning in our will by that one image of him pale and still. For Lamech's sons were heroes of their race. Jubal, the eldest, bore upon his face the look of that calm river god, the Nile, mildly secure in power that needs not guile. But Tubal-Cain was restless as the fire that glows and spreads and leaps from high to higher, where'er is aught to seize or to subdue. Strong as a storm he lifted or overthrew, his urgent limbs like rounded granite grew, such granite as the plunging torrent wears, and roaring rolls around through countless years. But strength that still on movement must be fed, inspiring thought of change, devices bred, and urged his mind through earth and air to rove, for force that he could conquer if he strove, for lurking forms that might new tasks fulfill, and yield unwilling to his stronger will. Such Tubal-Cain. But Jubal had a frame fashioned to finer senses, which became a yearning for some hidden soul of things, some outward touch complete on inner springs, that vaguely moving bred a lonely pain, a want that did but stronger grow with gain of all good, else as spirits might be sad for lack of speech to tell us they are glad. Now Jubal learned to tame the lowing kine, and from their udders drew the snow-white wine that stirs the innocent joy and makes the stream of elemental life with fullness teem. The star-browed calves he nursed with feeding hand, and sheltered them till all the little band stood mustered gazing at the sunset way, whence he would come with store at close of day. He soothed the silly sheep with friendly tone, and reared their staggering lambs that, older grown, followed his steps with sense-taught memory, till he, their shepherd, could their leader be, and guide them through the pastures as he would, with sway that grew from ministry of good. He spread his tents upon the grassy plain, which, eastward widening like the open main, showed the first whiteness 'neath the morning star. Near him his sister, deft as women are, plied her quick skill in sequence to his thought, till the hid treasures of the milk she caught, revealed like pollen mid the petals white, the golden pollen, virgin to the light. Even the she-wolf with young on rapine bent, he caught and tethered in his mat-walled tent, and cherished all her little sharp-nosed young, till the small race with hope and terror clung about his footsteps, till each new-reared brood, remoter from the memories of the wood, more glad discerned their common home with man. This was the work of Jubal. He began the pastoral life, and sire of joys to be, spread the sweet ties that bind the family o'er dear dumb souls, that thrilled at man's caress and shared his pain with patient helpfulness. But Tubal-Cain had caught and yoked the fire, yoked it with stones that bent the flaming spire, and made it roar in prisoned servitude within the furnace, till with force subdued it changed all forms he willed to work upon, till hard from soft and soft from hard he won. The pliant clay he moulded as he would, and laughed with joy when mid the heat it stood, shaped as his hand had chosen, while the mass that from his whole dark obstinate would pass, he drew all glowing from the busy heat, all breathing as with life that he could beat with thundering hammer, making it obey his will creative, like the pale soft clay. Each day he wrought, and better than he planned, shape breeding shape beneath his restless hand. The soul without still helps the soul within, and its deft magic ends what we begin. Nay, in his dreams his hammer he would wield, and seem to see a myriad types revealed, then spring with wondering triumphant cry, and, lest the inspiring vision should go by, would rush to labor with that plastic zeal which all the passion of our life can steel for force to work with. Each day saw the birth of various forms which, flung upon the earth, seemed harmless toys to cheat the exacting hour, but were as seeds instinct with hidden power. The axe, the club, the spiked wheel, the chain, held silently the shrieks and moans of pain, and near them latent lay in share and spade, in the strong bar, the saw, and deep-curved blade, glad voices of the hearth and harvest home, the social good and all earth's joy to come. Thus to mixed ends wrought Tubal, and they say some things he made have lasted to this day, as 30 silver pieces that were found by Noah's children buried in the ground. He made them from mere hunger of device, those small white discs, but they became the price the trader Judas sold his master for, and men still handling them in peace and war catch foul disease, that some as appetite, and lurks and clings as withering, damning blight. But Tubal-Cain wot not of treachery, nor greedy lust, nor any ill to be, save the one ill of sinking into naught, banishing from action and act-shaping thought. He was the sire of swift transforming skill, which arms for conquest man's ambitious will, and round him gladly as his hammer rung gathered the elders and the growing young, these handled vaguely, and those plied the tools, till happy chance begetting conscious rules, the home of Cain with industry was rife, and glimpses of a strong persistent life panting through generations as one breath, and filling with its soul the blank of death. Jubal too watched the hammer, till his eyes, no longer following its fall or rise, seemed glad with something they could not see, but only listen to, some melody, wherein dumb longings inward speech had found, won from the common store of struggling sound. Then, as the metal shapes more various grew, and hurled upon each other resonance drew, each gave new tones, the revelations dim of some external soul that spoke for him. The hollow vessel's clang, the clash, the boom, like light that makes wide spiritual room and skyey spaces in the spaceless thought. To Jubal such enlarged passions brought that love, hope, rage, and all experience were fused in vaster being, fetching thence concords and discords, cadences and cries, that seemed from some world-shrouded soul to rise, some rapture more intense, some mightier rage, some living sea that burst the bounds of man's brief age. Then with such blissful trouble and glad care for growth within unborn as mothers bear, to the far woods he wandered, listening, and heard the birds their little stories sing, in notes whose rise and fall seem melted speech, melted with tears, smiles, glances that can reach more quickly through our frame's deep winding night, and without thought raise thought's best fruit, delight. Pondering, he sought his home again, and heard the fluctuant changes of the spoken word, the deep remonstrance and the argued want, insistent first in close monotonous chant, next leaping upward to defiant stand, or downward, beating like the resolute hand, the mother's call, the children's answering cry, the laugh's light cataract tumbling from on high, the suasive repetitions, Jobble taught, that timid browsing cattle homeward brought, the clear-winged fugue of echoes vanishing, and through them all the hammer's rhythmic ring. Jubal sat lonely. All around was dim, yet his face glowed with light revealed to him. For as the delicate streams of odor wakes the thought-wed sentience, and some image makes, from out the mingled fragments of the past, finely compact in wholeness that will last, so streamed as from the body of each sound, subtler pulsations, swift as warmth, which found all prisoned germs and all their powers unbound, till thought self-luminous flamed from memory, and in creative vision wandered free. Then Jubal, standing rapturous, arms upraised, and on the dark with eager eyes he gazed, as had some manifested God been there. It was his thought he saw, the presence fair of unachieved achievement, the high task, the mighty unborn spirit that thus ask, with irresistible cry for blood and breath, till feeding its great life we sink in death. He said, were now those mighty tones and cries that from the giant soul of earth arise, those groans of some great travail heard from far, some power to wrestle with the things that are, those sounds which vary with the varying form of clay and metal, and in sightless swarm fill the wide space with tremors, were these wed to human voices with such passion fed as does but glimmer in our common speech, but might flame out in tones whose changing reach, surpassing meagre need, informs the sense with fuller union, fine difference? Were this great vision, now obscurely bright as morning hills that melt in new-poured light, wrought into solid form and living sound, moving with ordered throb and sure rebound, then, nay, I, Jubal, with that work begin. The generations of our race shall win new life that grows from out the heart of this, as spring from winter, or as lover's bliss from out the dull unknown of unwaked energies. Thus he resolved, and in the soul-fed light of coming ages waited through the night, watching for that near dawn whose chiller ray showed but the unchanged world of yesterday, where all the order of his dream divine lay like Olympian forms within the mine, where fervor that could fill the earthly round with thronged joys of form-begotten sound must shrink, intense within the patient power that lonely labors through the niggard hour. Such patience have the heroes who begin, sailing the first towards lands which others win. Jubal must dare as great beginners dare, strike form's first way in matter rude and bare, and, yearning vaguely toward the plenteous choir of the world's harvest, make one poor small lyre. He made it, and from out its measured frame drew the harmonic soul whose answers came with guidance sweet and lessons of delight, teaching to ear and hand the blissful right, where strictest law is gladness to the sense, and all desire bends toward obedience. Then Jubal poured his triumph in a song, the rapturous word that rapturous notes prolong, as radiance streams from smallest things that burn, or thought of loving into love doth turn. And still his lyre gave companionship in sense-taught concert as of lip with lip, Alone amid the hills at first he tried his winged song, then with adoring pride and bridegroom's joy at leading forth his bride, he said, "This wonder which my soul hath found, this heart of music in the might of sound, shall forthwith be the share of all our race, and like the morning gladden common space. The song shall spread and swell as rivers do, and I will teach our youth with skill to woo this living lyre, to know its secret will, its fine division of the good and ill. So shall men call me sire of harmony, and where great song is, there my life shall be." Thus glorying as a god beneficent, forth from his solitary joy he went to bless mankind. It was at evening, when shadows lengthening from each westward thing, when imminence of change makes sense more fine, and light seems holier in its grand decline. The fruit trees wore their studded coronal, earth and her children were at festival, glowing as with one heart and one consent, thought, love, trees, rocks, in sweet warm radiance blent. The tribe of Cain was resting on the ground, the various ages wreathed in one broad round. Here lay, while children peeped o'er his huge thighs, the sinewy man, embrowned by centuries. Here the broad-bosomed mother of the strong looked, like Demeter, placid o'er the throng of young lithe forms, whose rest was movement too. Tricks, prattle, nods, and laughs that lightly flew, and swayings as of flower-beds where love blew. For all had feasted well upon the flesh of juicy fruits or nuts and honey fresh, and now their wine was health-bred merriment, which through the generations circling went, leaving none sad, for even Father Cain smiled as a Titan might, despising pain. Jobble sat circled with a playful ring of children, lambs and whelps, whose gambolling, with tiny hoofs, paws, hands, and dimpled feet, made barks, bleats, laughs, and pretty hubbub meet. But Tubal's hammer rang from far away. Tubal alone would keep no holiday, his furnace must not slack for any feast. For of all hardships, work he counted least. He scorned all rest but sleep, where every dream made his repose more potent to action seem. Yet with health's nectar some strange thirst was blent, the fateful growth, the unnamed discontent, the inward shaping toward some unborn power, some deeper breathing act, the being's flower. After all gestures, words, and speech of eyes, the soul had more to tell, and broke in sighs. Then from the east, with glory on his head, such as low slanting beams on corn waves spread, came Jubal with his lyre. There mid the throng, where the blank space was, poured a solemn song, touching his lyre to full harmonic throb, and measured pulse with cadences that sob, exult and cry and search the inmost deep, where the dark source of new passion sleep. Joy took the air, and took each breathing soul, embracing them in one entranced whole, yet thrilled each varying frame to various ends, as spring new waking through the creature sends, or rage or tenderness, more plenteous life, here breeding dread, and there a fiercer strife. He who had lived through twice 3 centuries, whose months monotonous, like trees on trees in hoary forests stretch a backward maze, dreamed himself dimly through the travelled days, till in clear light he paused, and felt the sun that warmed him when he was a little one, knew that true heaven, the recovered past, the dear small known amid the unknown vast, and in that heaven wept. But younger limbs thrilled toward the future, that bright land which swims in western glory, isles and streams and bays, where hidden pleasures float in golden haze. And in all these the rhythmic influence, sweetly o'ercharging the delighted sense, flowed out in movements, little waves that spread enlarging, till in tidal union led the youths and maidens, both alike long tressed, by grace-inspiring melody possessed, rose in slow dance with beauteous floating swerve of limbs and hair, and many a melting curve of ringed feet swayed by each close-linked palm. Then Jubal poured more rapture in his psalm. The dance fired music, music fired the dance. The glow diffusive lit each countenance, till all the circling tribe arose and stood with glad yet awful shock of that mysterious good. Even Tubal caught the sound, and wondering came, urging his sooty bulk like smoke-wrapped flame, till he could see his brother with the lyre, the work for which he had lent his furnace-fire and diligent hammer, witting naught of this power in metal shape which made strange bliss, entering within him like a dream full fraught with new creations finished in a thought. The sun had sunk, but music was still there, and when this ceased, still triumph filled the air. It seemed the stars were shining with delight, and that no night was ever like this night. All clung with praise to Jubal. Some besought that he would teach them his new skill, some caught swiftly as smiles are caught in looks that meet the tone's melodic change and rhythmic beat. 'Twas easy following where invention trod. All eyes can see when light flows out from God. And thus did Jubal to his race reveal music, that larger soul, where woe and weal, filling the resonant chords, the song, the dance, moved with a wide-winged utterance. Now many a lyre was fashioned, many a song raised echoes new, old echoes to prolong, till things of Jubal's making were so rife. Hearing myself, he said, I hems in my life, and I will get me to some far-off land where higher mountains under heaven stand, and touch the blue at rising of the stars, whose song they hear where no rough mingling mars the great clear voices. Such lands there must be, where varying forms make varying symphony, where other thunders roll amid the hills, some mightier wind a mightier forest fills, with other strains through other shapen boughs, where bees and birds and beasts that hunt or browse will teach me songs I know not. Listening there, my life shall grow like trees both tall and fair, that rise and spread and bloom toward fuller fruit each year. He took a raft and travelled with the stream southward for many a league, till he might deem he saw at last the pillars of the sky, beholding mountains whose white majesty rushed through him as new awe, and made new song that swept with fuller wave the chords along, weighting his voice with deep religious chime, the iteration of slow chant sublime. It was the region long inhabited by all the race of Seth, and Jubal said, Here have I found my thirsty soul's desire. Eastward the hills touch heaven, and evening's fire flames through deep waters. I will take my rest, and feed anew from my great mother's breast the sky-clasped earth, whose voices nurture me as the flower's sweetness doth the honey bee. He lingered wandering for many an age, and sowing music made high heritage for generations far beyond the flood, for the poor late-begotten human brood, born to life's weary brevity and perilous good. And ever as he travelled, he would climb the farthest mountain, yet the heavenly chime, the mighty tolling of the far-off spheres, beating their pathway, never touched his ears. But wheresoe'er he rose, the heavens rose, and the far-gazing mountain could disclose naught but a wider earth, until one height showed him the ocean stretched in liquid light, and he could hear its multitudinous roar, its plunge and hiss upon the pebbled shore. Then Jubal silent sat, and touched his lyre no more. He thought, the world is great, but I am weak, and where the sky bends is no solid peak to give me footing, but instead this main, like myriad maddened horses thundering o'er the plain. New voices come to me where'er I roam, my heart too widens with widening home, but song grows weaker, and the heart must break for lack of voice or fingers that can wake the lyre's full answer. Nay, its chords were all too few to meet the growing spirit's call. The former songs seem little, yet no more can soul, hand, voice with interchanging lore tell what the earth is saying unto me. The secret is too great, I hear confusedly. No farther will I travel, once again my brethren I will see, and that fair plain where I in song were born, there fresh-voiced youth will pour my strains with all the earthly truth, which now abides not in my voice and hands, but only in the soul, the will that stands helpless to move. My tribe, remembering, will cry, "'Tis he!" and run to greet me, welcoming. The way was weary. Many a date palm grew, and shook out clustered gold against the blue, while Yuval, guided by the steadfast spheres, sought the dear home of those first eager years, when, with fresh vision fed, the fuller will took living outward shape in pliant skill. For still he hoped to find the former things, and the warm gladness recognition brings. His footsteps erred among the mazy woods, and long elusive sameness of the floods. Winding and wandering through far regions strange, with Gentile homes and faces did he range, and left his music in their memory, and left at last, when naught besides would free his homeward steps from clinging hands and cries, the ancient lyre. And now in ignorant eyes no sign remained of Yuval, Lamech's son, that mortal frame wherein was first begun the immortal life of song. His withered brow pressed over eyes that held no lightning now, his locks streamed whiteness on the hurrying air. The unresting soul had worn itself quite bare of beauteous token, as the outworn might of oaks slow dying, gaunt in summer's light. His full deep voice toward thinnest treble ran. He was the rune-writ story of a man. And so at last he neared the well-known land, could see the hills in ancient order stand, with friendly faces, whose familiar gaze looked through the sunshine of his childish days, knew the deep-shadowed folds of hanging woods, and seemed to see the self-same insect broods whirling and quivering o'er the flowers, to hear the self-same cuckoo making distant near. Yea, the dear earth with mother's constancy met and embraced him and said, "Thou art he. This was thy cradle, here my breast was thine, where feeding thou didst all thy life entwine with my sky-wedded life in heritage divine." But wending ever through the watered plain, firm not to rest save in the home of Cain, he saw dread change, with dubious face and cold that never kept a welcome for the old, like some strange air upon the earth, arise, saying, "This home is mine." He thought his eyes mocked all deep memories, as things new made, usurping sense, make old things shrink and fade, and seem ashamed to meet the staring day. His memory saw a small foot-trodden way, his eyes a broad far-stretching paven road, bordered with many a tomb and fair abode. This little city that once nestled low, as buzzing groups about some central glow, spread like a murmuring crowd o'er plain and steep, or monster huge in heavy breathing sleep. His heart grew faint, and tremblingly he sank close by the wayside on a weed-grown bank, not far from where a new raised temple stood, sky-roofed and fragrant with wrought cedar wood. The morning sun was high. His rays fell hot on this hap-chosen dusty common spot, on the dry withered grass and withered man, that wondrous frame where melody began. lay as a tomb defaced that no eye cared to scan. But while he sank, far music reached his ear, and listened until wonder silenced fear, and gladness wonder. For the broadening stream of sound advancing was his early dream, brought like fulfillment of forgotten prayer, as if his soul, breathed out upon the air, had held the invisible seeds of harmony, quick with the various strains of life to be. He listened, the sweet mingled difference with charm alternate took the meeting sense. Then bursting like some shield broad lily red, sudden and near the trumpet's notes outspread, and soon his eyes could see the metal flower, shining upturned, out on the morning pour its incense audible, could see a train from out the street slow winding on the plain, with lyres and cymbals, flutes and psalteries, while men, youths, maids in concert sang to these with various throat, or in succession poured, or in full volume mingled. But one word ruled each recurrent rise and answering fall, as when the multitudes adoring call on some great name divine, their common soul, the common need, joy, love, that knits them in one whole. The word was Jubal. Jubal filled the air, and seemed to ride aloft a spirit there, creator of the choir, the full-fraught strain that grateful rolled itself to him again. The aged man, adust upon the bank, whom no eye saw, at first with rapture drank the bliss of music, then with swelling heart felt this was his own being's greatest part, the universal joy once born in him. But when the train with living face and limb and vocal breath came nearer and more near, the longing grew that they should hold him dear. Him, Lamech's son, whom all the fathers knew, the breathing Jubal, him to whom their love was due. All was forgotten but the burning need to claim his fuller self, to claim this deed that lived away from him and grew apart, while he, as from a tomb, with lonely heart, warmed by no meeting glance, no hand that pressed, lay chill amid the life his life had blessed. What though his song should spread from man's small race out through the myriad worlds that people space, and make the heavens one joy-diffusing choir? Still mid that vast would throb the keen desire of this poor aged flesh, this eventide, this twilight soon in darkness to subside, this little pulse of self that, having glowed through thrice 3 centuries and divinely strewed the light of music through the vague of sound, ached smallness still in good that had no bound. For no eye saw him, while with loving pride each voice with each in praise of Jubal vied. Must he in conscious trance dumb, helpless lie, while all that ardent kindred passed him by? His flesh cried out to live with living men, and join that soul which to the inward ken of all the hymning train was present there. Strong passions daring sees naught ought to dare. The frost-locked starkness of his frame low bent, his voice's penury of tones long spent, he felt not. All his being leaped in flame to meet his kindred as they onward came. Slackening and wheeling toward the temple's face, he rushed before them to the glittering space, and with a strength that was but strong desire cried, "I am Jubal, I made the lyre." The tones amid a lake of silence fell, broken and strained, as if a feeble bell had tuneless pealed the triumph of a land to listening crowds in expectation spanned. Sudden came showers of laughter on that lake. They spread along the train from front to wake in one great storm of merriment, while he shrank doubting whether he could Jubal be, and not a dream of Jubal, whose rich vein of passionate music came with that dream pain, wherein the sense slips off from each loved thing, and all appearance as mere vanishing. But ere the laughter died from out the rear, anger in front saw profanation near. Jubal was but a name in each man's faith, for glorious power untouched by that slow death which creeps with creeping time. This too the spot, and this the day, it must be crime to blot. Even with scoffing at a madman's lie, Jubal was not a name to wed with mockery. Two rushed upon him, two, the most devout, in honor of great Jubal, thrust him out, and beat him with their flutes. 'Twas little need, he strove not, cried not, but with tottering speed, as if the scorn and howls were driving wind, that urged his body, serving so the mind, which could but shrink and yearn. He sought the screen of thorny thickets, and there fell unseen. The immortal name of Jubal filled the sky, while Jubal, lonely, laid him down to die. He said within his soul, "This is the end. O'er all the earth, to where the heavens bend and hem men's travel, I have breathed my soul. I lie here now, the remnant of that whole, the embers of a life, a lonely pain. As far-off rivers to my thirst were vain, so of my mighty years naught comes to me again." Is the day sinking? Softest coolness springs from something round me, dewy shadowy wings enclose me all around. No, not above. Is moonlight there? I see a face of love, fair as sweet music when my heart was strong. Yea, art thou come again to me, great song? The face bent over him like silver night in long-remembered summers, that calm light of days which shine in firmaments of thought, that past unchangeable, from change still wrought. And there were tones that with the vision blent. He knew not if that gaze the music sent, or music that calm gaze. To hear, to see, was but one undivided ecstasy. The raptured senses melted into one, and parting life a moment's freedom won. From in and outer, as a little child sits on a bank and sees blue heavens mild down in the water, and forgets its limbs, and knoweth naught save the blue heaven that swims. "Jubal," the face said, "I am thy loved past, the soul that makes thee one from first to last. I am the angel of thy life and death, thy outbreathed being drawing its last breath. Am I not thine alone, a dear dead bride, who blessed thy lot above all men's beside? Thy bride, whom thou wouldst never change, nor take any bride living for that dead one's sake? Was I not all thy yearning and delight, thy chosen search, thy senses' beauteous right, which still had been the hunger of thy frame? In central heaven hadst thou been still the same? Wouldst thou have asked aught else from any god, whether with gleaming feet on earth he trod, or thundered through the skies, aught else for share of mortal good, than in thy soul to bear the growth of song, and feel the sweet unrest of the world's springtide in thy conscious breast? No, thou hadst grasped thy lot with all its pain, nor loosed it any painless lot to gain, where music's voice was silent. For thy fate was human music's self-incorporate. Thy senses' keenness and thy passionate strife were flesh of her flesh, and her womb of life. And greatly hast thou lived, for not alone with hidden raptures were her secrets shown, buried within thee, as the purple light of gems may sleep in solitary night. But thy expanding joy was still to give, and with the generous air in song to live, feeding the wave of ever-widening bliss, where fellowship meets equal perfectness. And on the mountains, in thy wandering, thy feet were beautiful as blossomed spring, that turns the leafless wood to love's glad home. For with thy coming, melody was come. This was thy lot, to feel, create, bestow, and that immeasurable life to know, from which the fleshly self falls shriveled, dead, a seed primeval, that has forests bred. It is the glory of the heritage thy life has left that makes thy outcast age. Thy limbs shall lie dark, tombless on this sod, because thou shinest in man's soul, a god, who found and gave new passion and new joy that naught but earth's destruction can destroy. Thy gifts to give was thine of men alone. 'Twas but in giving that thou couldst atone for too much wealth amid their poverty. The words seemed melting into symphony, the wings upbore him, and the gazing song was floating him the heavenly space along, where mighty harmonies all gently fell through veiling vastness like the far-off bell, till ever onward through the choral blue he heard more faintly and more faintly new, quitting mortality, a quenched sun-wave, the all-creating presence for his grave. End of the Legend of Yuval. This recording is in the public domain.
Mine and Thine by William Morris, read for LibriVox.org by Newgate Novelist. From a Flemish poem of the 14th century. 2 words about the world we see, and naught but mine and thine they be. Ah, might we drive them forth and wide, with us should rest and peace abide, all free, not owned of goods and gear, by men and women though it were. Common to all wheat and wine, over the seas and up the Rhine. No manslayer then the wide world o'er, when mine and thine are known no more. Yea, God, well counselled for our health, gave all this fleeting earthly wealth, a common heritage to all, that men might feed them therewithal, and clothe their limbs, and shoe their feet, and live a simple life and sweet. But now so rageth greediness, that each desireth nothing less than all the world, and all his own, and all for him and him alone. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
New Year's Chimes by Francis Thompson, read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. What is the song the stars sing? And 1,000,000 songs are a song of one. This is the song the stars sing, sweeter songs none. One to set and many to sing, and 1,000,000 songs are a song of one. One to stand and many to cling, the many things and the one thing, the one that runs not, the many that run. The ever new weaveth the ever old, and 1,000,000 songs are a song of one. Ever telling the never told, the silver saith, and the said is gold, and done ever the never done. The chase that's chased is lord of the chase, and 1,000,000 songs are a song of one. And the pursued cries on the race, and the hounds in leash are the hounds that run. Hidden stars by the shown stars sheen, and 1,000,000 suns are but as one. Colours unseen by the colours seen, and sounds unheard, heard sounds between, and a night is in the light of the sun. An ambuscade of lights and night, and 1,000,000 secrets are but as one, and a night is dark on the sun's light, and a world in the world man looks upon. Hidden stars by the shown stars' wings, and 1,000,000 cycles are but as one, and a world with unapparent strings knits the stimulant world of things. Behold, and vision thereof is none. The world above and the world below, and 1,000,000 worlds are but as one, and the one in all, as the sun's strength so, strives in all strength, glows in all glow, of the earth that wits not, and man thereon. Braced in its own fourfold embrace, and 1,000,000 strengths are as strength of one, and round it all God's arms of grace, the world, so as the vision says, doth with great lightning tramples run. And thunder bruiteth into thunder, and 1,000,000 sounds are a sound of one. From stellate peak to peak is tossed a voice of wonder, and the height stoops down to the depths thereunder. and son leans forth to his brother sun. And the more ample years unfold, with a million songs as song of one, a little new of the ever old, a little told of the never told, added act of the never done. Loud the descant and low the theme, a million songs are a song of one, and the dream of the world is dream and dream, but the one is, or naught could seem, and the song runs round to the song begun. This is a song the stars sing, toned all in time, tintinnabulous, tuned to ring, a multitudinous single thing, rung all in rhyme. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Now Winter Nights Enlarge by Thomas Campion. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tomlinson. Now winter nights enlarge the number of their hours, and clouds their storms discharge upon the airy towers. Let now the chimneys blaze, and cups o'erflow with wine. Let well-tuned words amaze with harmony divine. Now yellow waxen light shall wait on honey love, while youthful revels, masks, and courtly sights sleep's leaden spells remove. This time doth well dispense with lovers' long discourse. Much speech hath some defence, though beauty no remorse. All do not all things well, some measures comely tread, some knotted riddles tell, some poems smoothly read. The summer hath his joys, and winter his delights, though love and all his pleasures are but toys, they shorten tedious nights. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On Love by Bliss Carman. Read for LibriVox.org by Thomas Peter. To the assembled folk at great St. Kavin spoke young brother Emile on Christmas Eve. I give you joy, my friends, that as the round year ends, we meet once more for gladness by God's leave. On other festal days, for penitence or praise or prayer we meet, or fullness of thanksgiving. Tonight we calendar the rising of that star, which lit the old world with new joy of living. Ah, we disparage still the tidings of goodwill, discrediting love's gospel now as then. And with the verbal creed that God is love indeed, who dares make love his God before all men? Shall we not, therefore, friends, resolve to make amends to that glad inspiration of the heart, to grudge not, to cast out selfishness, malice, doubt, anger, and fear, and for the better part, to love so much, so well, the spirit cannot tell the range and sweep of her own boundary. There is no period between the soul and God. Love is the tide, God the eternal sea. Today we walk by love. To strive is not enough, save against greed and ignorance and might. We apprehend peace comes, not with the roll of drums, but in the still processions of the night. And we perceive, not awe but love is the great law, that binds the world together safe and whole. The splendid planets run their courses in the sun. Love is the gravitation of the soul. In the profound unknown, illumined, fair and lone, each star is set to shimmer in its place. In the profound divine each soul is set to shine, and its unique appointed orbit trace. There is no near nor far, where glorious Algebar swings round his mighty circuit through the night, yet where without a sound the winged seed comes to ground, and the red leaf seems hardly to alight. One force, one lore, one need for satellite and seed, in the serene benignity for all, letting her time-glass run with stardust sun by sun. In nature's thought there is no great nor small. There is no far nor near within the spirit's sphere. The summer sunset's scarlet-yellow wings are tinged with the same dye that paints the tulip's ply. And what is colour but the soul of things? The earth was without form, God moulded it with storm, ice, flood, and tempest, gleaming tint and hue, lest it should come to ill, for lack of spirit still, he gave it colour, let the love shine through. Of old, men said, sin not, by every line and jot ye shall abide, man's heart is false and vile. Christ said, by love alone in man's heart is God known, obey the word no falsehood can defile. And since that day we prove only how great his love, nor to this hour its greatness half believe, for to what other power will life give equal dower, or chaos grant one moment of reprieve? Look down the ages line, where slowly the divine evinces energy, puts forth control. See mighty love alone, transmuting stock and stone, infusing being, helping sense and soul. And what is energy, in-working, which bids be the starry pageant in the life of earth? What is the genesis of every joy and bliss, each action dared, each beauty brought to birth? What hangs the sun on high? What swells the growing rye? What bids the loons cry on the northern lake? What stirs in swamp and swale, when April winds prevail, and all the dwellers of the ground awake? What lurks in the deep gaze of the old wolf? Amaze, hope, recognition, gladness, anger, fear. But deeper than all these, love muses, yearns and sees, and is the self that does not change nor veer. Not love of self alone, struggle for lair and bone, but self-denying love of mate and young, love that is kind and wise, knows trust and sacrifice, and croons the old dark universal tongue. And who has understood our brothers of the wood, save he who puts off guile and every guise of violence, made truce with panther, bear, and moose, as beings like ourselves whom love makes wise? For they too do love's will, our lesser clansmen still. The house of many mansions holds us all, courageous, glad, and hale. They go forth on the trail, hearing the message, hearkening to the call. Open the door tonight within your heart, and light the lantern of love there to shine afar. On a tumultuous sea some straining craft may be, with bearings lost, shall sight love's silver star. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Out of Sight by A. B. Banjo Patterson. Read for LibriVox.org by Son of the Exiles. Out of Sight. They held a polo meeting at a little country town, and all the local sportsmen came to win themselves renown. There came two strangers with a horse, and I am much afraid they both belong to what is called the Take You Down Brigade. They said their horse could jump like fun, and asked an amateur to ride him in the steeplechase, and told him they were sure the last time round he'd sail away with such a swallow's flight, the rest would never see him go, he'd finish out of sight. So out he went, and when folks saw the amateur was up, some local genius called the race the Dude in Danger Cup. The horse was known as Who's Afraid by panic from the fright, but still his owners told the jock he'd finish out of sight. And so he did, for Who's Afraid, without the least pretence, disposed of him by rushing through the very second fence. And when they ran the last time round, the prophecy was right, for he was in the ambulance and safely out of sight. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Passing of the Year by Helen Gray Cone. Read for LibriVox.org by Ian King. O gentle year, I'll not entreat thee stay, since now thy face is set to some far land, not named of men, untrod, a shadow strand. And those most powerful prayers that lips could pray would not obtain thy tarrying for a day. Yet, gliding from us with the sliding sand, thou shalt not pass till I have kissed the hand that gave me joys and took but time away. Can love, that of the soul's delight is born, being matched in stature to the soul, increase. Not so, but memory, leaning at his side, waxes with every rosy draught of morn, and gathers to her every moon's full peace, and dreaming on dark seas of summer, grows deep-eyed. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Prairies by William Cullen Bryant. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Prairies. These are the gardens of the desert, these the unshorn fields, boundless and beautiful, for which the speech of England has no name. The prairies. I behold them for the first, and my heart swells, while the dilated sight takes in the encircling vastness. Lo! They stretch in airy undulations far away, as if the ocean in his gentlest swell stood still, with all his rounded billows fixed and motionless forever. Motionless? No, they are all unchained again. The clouds sweep over with their shadows, and beneath, the surface rolls and fluctuates to the eye. Dark hollows seem to glide along and chase the sunny ridges. Breezes of the south, who toss the golden and the flame-like flowers, and past the prairie hawk that, poised on high, flaps his broad wings, yet moves not. Ye have played among the palms of Mexico and vines of Texas, and have crisped the limpid brooks that from the fountains of Sonora glide into the calm Pacific. Have ye fanned a nobler or a lovelier scene than this? Man hath no part in all this glorious work. The hand that built the firmament hath heaved and smoothed these verdant swells, and sown their slopes with herbage, planted them with island groves, and hedged them round with forests. Fitting floor for this magnificent temple of the sky, with flowers whose glory and whose multitude rival the constellations. The great heavens seem to stoop down upon the scene in love, a nearer vault, and of a tenderer blue than that which bends above the eastern hills. As over the verdant waste I guide my steed, among the high rank grass that sweeps his sides, the hollow beating of his footstep seems a sacrilegious sound. I think of those upon whose rest he tramples. Are they here, the dead of other days? And did the dust of these fair solitudes once stir with life, and burn with passion? Let the mighty mounds that overlook the rivers, or that rise in the dim forest crowded with old oaks, answer. A race that long has passed away built them. A disciplined and populous race heaped, with long toil, the earth, while yet the Greek was hewing the Pentelicus to forms of symmetry, and rearing on its rock the glittering Parthenon. These ample fields nourished their harvests. Here their herds were fed, when haply by their stalls the bison lowed, and bowed his maned shoulder to the yoke. All day this desert murmured with their toils, till twilight blushed, and lovers walked and wooed in a forgotten language, and old tunes, from instruments of unremembered form, gave the soft winds a voice. The red men came, the roaming hunter tribes, warlike and fierce, and the mound builders vanished from the earth. The solitude of centuries untold has settled where they dwelt. The prairie wolf hunts in their meadows, and his fresh dug den yawns by my path. The gopher mines the ground where stood their swarming cities. All is gone, all, save the piles of earth that hold their bones, the platforms where they worshipped unknown gods, the barriers which they builded from the soil to keep the foe at bay, till over the walls the wild beleaguerers broke, and one by one the strongholds of the plain were forced, and heaped with corpses. The brown vultures of the wood flocked to those vast uncovered sepulchres, and sat, unscared and silent, at their feast. Haply some solitary fugitive, lurking in marsh and forest, till the sense of desolation and of fear became bitterer than death, yielded himself to die. Man's better nature triumphed then, Kind words welcomed and soothed him. The rude conquerors seated the captive with their chiefs. He chose a bride among their maidens, and at length seemed to forget, yet never forgot, the wife of his first love, and her sweet little ones, butchered, amid their shrieks, with all his race. Thus change the forms of being. Thus arise races of living things, glorious in strength, and perish as the quickening breath of God fills them or is withdrawn. The red man too has left the blooming wilds he ranged so long, and nearer to the rocky mountains saw the wilder hunting ground. The beaver builds no longer by these streams, but far away on waters whose blue surface never gave back the white man's face. Among Missouri's springs and pools whose issues swell the Oregon, he rears his little Venice. In these plains the bison feeds no more. Twice 20 leagues beyond remotest smoke of hunter's camp roams the majestic brute, in herds that shake the earth with thundering steps. Yet here I meet his ancient footprints stamped beside the pool. Still this great solitude is quick with life. Myriads of insects, gaudy as the flowers they flutter over, gentle quadrupeds and birds that scarce have learned the fear of man are here, and sliding reptiles of the ground, startlingly beautiful. The graceful deer bounds to the wood at my approach. The bee, a more adventurous colonist than man, with whom he came across the eastern deep, fills the savannas with his murmurings, and hides his sweets, as in the golden age, within the hollow oak. I listen long to his domestic hum, and think I hear the sound of that advancing multitude which soon shall fill these deserts. From the ground comes up the laugh of children, the soft voice of maidens, and the sweet and solemn hymn of Sabbath worshippers. The low of herds blends with the rustling of the heavy grain over the dark brown furrows. All at once a fresher wind sweeps by, and breaks my dream, and I am in the wilderness alone. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sigh No More, from Much Ado About Nothing, by William Shakespeare. Read for LibriVox.org by Daphne Ma. Sigh no more, ladies, sigh no more. Men were deceivers ever, one foot in sea and one on shore, to one thing constant, never. Then sigh not so, but let them go, and be you blithe and bonny, converting all your sounds of woe into hey nonny, nonny. Sing no more ditties, sing no more of dumps so dull and heavy. The fraud of man was ever so, since summer first was leafy. Then sigh not so, but let them go, and be you blithe and bonny, converting all your sounds of woe into hey nonny, nonny. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Snow Shower by W. C. Bryant. Read for LibriVox.org by Garth Burton. Stand here by my side and turn, I pray, on the lake below thy gentle eyes. The clouds hang over it heavy and grey, and dark and silent the water lies. And out of that frozen mist the snow in wavering flakes begins to flow. Flake after flake they sink in the dark and silent lake. See how in a living swarm they come from the chambers beyond that misty veil. Some hover awhile in air, and some rush prone from the sky like summer hail. All, dropping swiftly or settling slow, meet and are still in the depths below, flake after flake dissolved in the dark and silent lake. Here delicate snow stars out of the cloud come floating downward in airy play, like spangles dropped from the glistening crowd that whiten by night the Milky Way. There broader and burlier masses fall, the sullen water buries them all, flake after flake, all drowned in the dark and silent lake. And some, as on tender wings they glide from their chilly birth cloud, dim and grey, are joined in their fall, and, side by side, come clinging along their unsteady way. As friend with friend, or husband with wife, makes hand in hand the passage of life, each mated flake soon sinks in the dark and silent lake. Lo! while we are gazing, in swifter haste stream down the snows till the air is white, as, myriads by myriads madly chased, they fling themselves from their shadowy height, the fair, frail creatures of middle sky, what speed they make with their grave so nigh, flake after flake, to lie in the dark and silent lake. I see in thy gentle eyes a tear, they turn to me in sorrowful thought, thou thinkest of friends, the good and dear, who were for a time, and now are not. Like these fair children of cloud and frost, that glisten a moment and then are lost. Flake after flake, all lost in the dark and silent lake. Yet look again, for the clouds divide, a gleam of blue on the water lies, and far away, on the mountain side, a sunbeam falls from the opening skies. But the hurrying host that flew between the cloud and the water no more is seen, flake after flake, at rest in the dark and silent lake. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Song's End by John Payne. Read for LibriVox.org by Carlos Martin. The chime of a bell of gold that flutters across the air, the sound of a singing of old, the end of a tale that is told, of a melody strange and fair, of a joy that has grown despair. For the things that have been for me, I shall never have them again. The skies and the purple sea, and day like a melody, and night like a silver rain of stars on forest and plain. They are shut, the gates of the day, the night has fallen on me. My life is a lightless way, I sing yet while as I may. Some day I shall cease, maybe, I shall live on yet, you will see. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Sonnet 130 by William Shakespeare. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tomlinson. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I've seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks? I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. Read for LibriVox.org by Craig Franklin. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines of time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Two Workers by Thomas O'Hagan. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. The man who plants a seed of corn, and watches o'er it night and morn, and prays the heaven for kindly cheer, to nurse its heart with dewy tear, is doing work of goodly part, which gladdens hearth and home and mart, and gives his name an honored place within the compass of his race. But he who builds for future time strong walls of faith and love sublime, who domes with prayer his gift of toil, whom neither fate nor foe can foil, is doing work of godly part within the kingdom of the heart, and wins him honor brighter far than ray of light from heavenly star. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
When You Are Old by William Butler Yeats. Read for LibriVox.org by Ian King. When you are old and grey and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read, and dream of the soft look your eyes had once, and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced among the mountains overhead, and hid his face among a crowd of stars. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.